Hello everyone. In this episode of the Digital Mittelstand, we will talk about low-code and low-code applications, especially for Mittelstand. My name is Jan, and I am the founder of 360 Digital Transformation, where we help small and medium businesses, so Mittelstand, to optimize, digitalize, and automate their business-specific processes. Today, I have Pierre Garcia with me. He is the founder of 9X Agency, and he's a low-code enthusiast. Without any further ado. Hi, Pierre. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Simon. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here. And as you know, today we will talk about low-code and Mittelstand. But before we start, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So basically, my name is Pierre-Yves, and I'm a French guy who's been living in Germany for the past 8 years now. So basically, studied like very classical profile. I studied business school and then moved to Germany for my last year of study. And before my last year of study, I had started working as an intern in a French startup. And after graduating, they asked me if I wanted to work on building their subsidiary here in Germany. So that's what I started doing as a first job. I was building the subsidiary, the German subsidiary of the French startup, which was doing mostly car sharing, and worked there for 4 additional years. Developed a bit. We were a B2B business, then we went into B2C. We got acquired by Europcar, and that's what led me to move to Berlin because it was a very vibrant city for mobility. And from there on, stayed, worked in different startups. Spent 1 year with my former boss building a new venture, which is now in the French market and also expanding. And then spent 6 months at Zalando to actually realize it was too big a company for me. So that's when I understood I'm really the small startup guy. I like to be close to the entrepreneur and building things, building processes. And that's when I also realized, that there's so much to be done with technology and web technologies. I always loved working with developers and product managers. Did a bit of product management myself for a while as an interim position. And that's when then, I started getting into all these tools and getting a bit, freaky about the whole automation integration things. So that's basically me. And, now I'm a happy father of 2 kids here in Berlin and super, happy to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Thank you for the introduction. But you have recently founded 9X, and this is a agency for low-code development. But can you introduce 9X to us as well?
Yes. So basically, beginning of the year with a good friend of mine, we've been thinking about building a company for a while, and we always knew that's something we wanted to do, and we were thinking, okay, what can we do? What can we do to provide companies value? And the first thing that came into our mind is, okay, let's just do what we're doing in our current startups and try to do this for more companies. And as the things evolve, we realized that one of the main things we were doing is it's two-sided. It's one, helping company build scalable processes in a digital environment, and 2, finding a way for this company to actually implement these processes without having to rely too much on their tech department. Because especially when we're talking about internal processes, internal tools, most of the time you don't have enough resources from the product and tech department because they are focusing on delivering value to the customers. And it's very often that everything which is internal, which is productivity, will only come after. And what we wanted to do is basically find a good way to apply the knowledge we had about tools and softwares and processes and try to make these of good use for internal processes. And that ended up with us going deeper and deeper into this whole automation world. And that's when we decided to do 9X, which is basically an automation agency that uses a lot of low-code, no-code, or automation solutions to build these tools that you don't have, or connect your internal tools that you would usually ask your development team or your tech team to do if this was something which was customer-facing. So that's basically what we do.
Great. And yeah, I'm happy that our roads crossed on the low-code side. And as I'm a big fan of low-code, first I want to begin with what is low code, and then maybe building up onto how low code can help Mittelstand.
Okay, sure. So basically, I think there's a lot of different definitions of low code. For me, the way I always define this is when I was exchanging with my colleagues, which were mostly developers and CTO. I always say like this is first say no, it's no code. I'm just using platforms. Basically, I'm using platform which you can relate to one simple process, which is if this then that. And actually, it's funny because one of these platforms is called EFTT. And if this then that is a very simple principle is if this is happening somewhere, so you define a trigger, then I want that to happen somewhere else. And that's like very common is the FTT. I think one of the two that people most know is Zapier, of course, or Zapier, depending where you're from. And also then solution like Integromat. It's basically integration platforms which are leveraging what we call open APIs. So a lot of software provides APIs, so application programming interface, which are basically a way for other software to interact with it. And basically you have these guys, these integration platforms that go and look at all these tools who are providing these connectors, and they try to make it easier to use. And then you can build logic with a graphic interface. So you have your visual builder and you can say, okay, if this happens, then I want that to happen here. And, it can be very simple from, if I receive an email and if the person is not in my contact book, then I want to add in. Or if I receive a calendar invitation, I want to create a note in my note-taking system so that, I already have this. And whenever I go into the meeting, I can just open the note and start writing. And then, of course, you can go a bit more complex and try to build, very fancy automation.
Yeah, but thank you for the, let's say, great summary of how low code can help companies. But when it comes to Mittelstand, by Mittelstand you mean it's smaller size companies. How do they benefit from that?
Yeah. So I think what's very interesting, and that's something that struck me when we first started exchanging together. It's like there's two different ways where I mean, there's a lot of ways, but we have two different ways of arriving to low code. I think you come from the business process modeling world, which is very much into okay, what's the process? How does it look like? How do I make it, and how do I improve it? And then comes the step, okay, now that the process is optimal, how do I automate it? And I come more from the startup part, which is okay, we always use tech, and it's more okay, like let's use tech first. You always think about okay, using a software rather than having people do things because you don't have enough money to hire people. So you try to use as many software as possible, and then you connect them, and then you think about the process. And then basically low code is at the place where you want to change a bit the way the software is working to make it fit the optimal process. And so basically what low code does is it provides, and I'm saying low code, it's low code, no code. It's basically just this logic of being able to leverage web technologies to serve a process and automate it. And the reason why this is useful for Mittelstand is because the main value of low code is that you don't need to have developer doing it. Of course, it requires a bit of an engineering logic. So of course, you need people who come from business process modeling or people who have worked with technical product, because you need to be able to understand the logic of building the process and making it compatible to a software logic, so to say. But basically, you can have things automated, you can have things repetitive, you can have scalable processes. So, if you have someone doing one thing 100 times a week, you can just make an automation that will run 100 times, provided that it's always the same thing. And this is a way for, I think, for, like mid-sized company to gain on productivity, to save time and money, and also to start trying things. Because usually what you often have is you have people who want to try to, implement a new solution, but it takes 3 months to, have the proper development work to get this started. So with the low-code approach, you can say, okay, I want the solution. I know how it looks like. So there's some parts which I need to be connected, and that you can use low-code to do. And the rest, you can still be, half connected or manual. And you can go into this logic of building something in 3 weeks rather than 3 months, testing it. And if it works, then you can, reach out to a proper development team to have this, solidified.
Yeah. So rapid prototyping, that's a great example, as you said. Also, not necessarily we need big software development teams in order to create something. We could first try and see whether we really need that, because
Yes.
most of the times it's not the case, but sometimes it's really case that something is built through 6 months, through 1 year, and then at the end of this time period it's not needed at all, or it was the wrong thing, or
Yeah.
it doesn't help. So all these works are almost to the waste basket.
Yes. Yes. And I think one very common problem that's happening in this context is when you work and when you have software development work done, you have a lot of people involved, and especially the people who are developing the things, and these are like engineers and like computer scientists or developers, and these people don't speak the same language, should say, than the business people who have the need. And so then that's why you need a project manager, you need a product manager, you have all these intermediaries that at some point will end up with sometimes the final solution not exactly matching the needs of the first person. And I think that's one of the value of low code, is you can have like in most of the case, it's someone like you or me, which we come with a business background, or we are used to interacting with business people, and we are also the same person directly implementing the solution, which will remove the risk of having this gap between what you want and what you have, and especially when this it's 6 months of work, and if you have a too big gap, then you are in the problem you just referenced.
Yeah.
So I think that's another advantage that low-code can provide.
Exactly. And can you please tell us how 9x, so your company, help Mittelstand? So we have talked about this before, but I want my audience to know that how you help, Mittelstand.
Yes. So I mean, basically, there's two ways in which we can help mid-sized companies, Mittelstand. I think there's one which is like what our main value proposition is. We are business people. We are like me and my co-founder. We both spent almost 10 years in startups, and mostly in operations, but any form. Like when I say operation, it could be business operation, marketing operation, sales operation. So mostly in the part of the business where it's about making the function a bit more efficient, a bit more optimum, automated. So we come with this mindset of how do we build a product in a culture of digital processes. And basically, when we go to, and we have a couple of customers which are actually like more the French version of Mittelstand. And what we try to do is to bring this approach of if you have something you need and your ERP is not able to provide it, we could give you a very very simple custom tool that meets your need, and that comes from knowing what's on the market, having a good knowledge of all the software as a service solution you can find on the market, which is something that every startup is using 10 to 20 software as a service. While in a lot of mid-sized company, you'd rather have more ancient solution, and you have a lot of ERPs, which are one tool that does everything. So trying to come with this approach of, okay, if you have a small problem, let's just have a tool that does that, and then we work around the issues, the connection that you need, the export, the import. So that's one thing we can do, try to help you find something that matches your need. And if there are some side problems or things around that don't fit, we'll help you make it fit to your current process. And the second part of things we're doing is because it's also sometimes possible that we don't have time to do this, or our time is too expensive, then we also have an educational program. So we have already published an online course, and we are also working on a new one, which will air in September, where basically we take people who have no basic knowledge, who have no experience in automations, no code or low code, and we basically try to introduce them to some of the tools we use and introduce them to the practice and to the logic of what we do. And basically, we have a strong belief that if you understand a bit some of the theoretical knowledge behind web technologies. And then if I can introduce you to a couple of tools which kind of replicates, let's say basically, software is a front end, a back end, and a database. So it's an interface, it's logic, and it's some place where data is stored consistently. Then the logic you have around how that interacts is the same, whether this is like a proper software, or if you use, if you use a form for your front end, if you use Integromat or Zapier for your backend, and then you use Airtable or Google Sheets as a solution to store the data. The logic is the same, and if you replicate the same logic, you can have an automation which is built in a way that resembles a software, and therefore will be able to scale and be efficient. And that's the kind of thing that we want to teach people, to show how to do in a very practical way, in a way which is, you come in, it's going to be 6 weeks of learning and doing, and just getting your hands dirty and just going at it, because it's a very practical knowledge. You automate things, and then you learn how to automate things by automating some more things.
Yeah.
So that's basically what we do at 9X.
That sounds exciting. And then I would like to ask you your favorite use cases of low code for Mittelstand.
So there's one thing that I really like, and which is like very straightforward use of low code. It's like, it's with this tool I love, which is called Integromat. Is basically whenever there's one feature that you don't have in the solution you're using. Let's say you have a CRM and you want to have this logic, or you need to have a calculated field, or you need to have a workflow. But the only way to get that is if you upgrade to the enterprise tier, and it costs you you go from 200 euro a month to like a K a month, And usually it's only for one small feature, but that's normal, because that's the way that this software are pricing. They know exactly what kind of feature you want, and that's the one that you don't have unless you pay more. And basically what I do is I try to replicate this feature using I'm just telling Integromat to say, okay, if this happens in the tool, then do that in the same tool. So basically I'm just building the missing feature using an integration platform that cost me $9 per month, instead of having to do an upgrade for like $200 or $300 a month. So that's one of my favorite use cases.
Yeah, that's great. And generally it's also out of the box thinking. I mean, regularly people or users don't think like this. They think like, okay, there is only way to get this feature, to upgrade or to change the system completely. But here you are coming into play and saying, hey guys, there is an alternative way, which is way more cheaper. It's like $9 a month. And that's also not rocket science. We use, for example, Integromat, and then we take this data from CRM, we calculate it for you, and we push it back, or you can see it here in that dashboard or whatever. Here I also wanted to say this is the Integromat was a tool from Czech Republic, if I am not mistaken, but recently acquired by Celonis. It's a German process mining tool. Actually, it was a process mining tool. It grown way more bigger, and it's right now executive management system. They call it something like this. Just wanted to give some information and background of Integromat, Celonis, and so on. Pierre, I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned, and it is bidirectionally between startups and Mittelstand. But I want to hear that from you. What do you think? What are the learnings from Mittelstand to startups and from startups to Mittelstand?
So basically, like what I've seen over the past years is one thing that startups are really good at is having this natural bias towards technology. Whenever they can, they will try to find a solution, an automation. They will try to find a way to have something automated, or they will make the process easier or scalable because there is technology involved. And I think that's something which is very it's a great thing, because that's how you can actually always push you push the limits of what's possible. You never think, okay, that's too complex. You first look for a technical solution, because what's really great in the world we live now is, no matter what your problem is, if it's a common problem, or if at least you and a couple of other people have the same problem, chances are that somewhere there's a developer who actually already solved that issue. And because of the way the technology is, and it's the whole, web service and API logic, basically they can, for 20 euro or 50 euro, 100 euro per month, this developer is providing you the logic, and you can basically just pay for the logic and just, pay a monthly fee and have the whole complexity. And that's true for, like route planning, optimization, calculation, like any form where you need either a big calculation or a big logic, there's somebody who already did that for you. And startups are very good at actually finding these solutions and implementing them into their processes. But the thing that startups are not the best at is to try to process, and especially because a lot of startups are really biased towards technology and digital processes. Whenever you go into, real, like, operations, like logistics, like, physical handling, then, I think they try to rely mostly on technology to make process efficient, where actually, there's also a part which is just, having a proper modeling of the process, thinking about the process. And I think startups relies a lot on individual and technology. And I think Mittelstand are very, especially here in Germany, they are very good at relying on, what I say is like collective intelligence. It's just processes, well-designed processes and structure organizations, which makes the business, very strong and efficient, but also it makes it difficult to adapt to changes. So I think I think it's a good balance to find between them, and of course interacting with each other would be a good way for the startup to be a bit more process driven, to be a bit more resilient, and also I think to think more about how to make money rather than there's a strong bias into startups to raise money. I think it's a bit right now a bit of the issue you can see on the startup scene.
Exactly.
While on the Mittelstand side, there's like, it's funny how they're very good at. I think it's something that's very, it's very clear for me. Is most of Mittelstand, first you don't know them, but they're the world leader of something, And what it means is they're really good at what they do, but they could be even better because they don't leverage, the current state of technology to make their operation even more efficient, or to make their communication even more efficient. And they're the best in the world, but nobody knows them. And maybe they could do more. And I think that's what always very interesting about this space.
And I see a lot of collaborations possibilities between startups and Mittelstand. Mittelstand has the know-how, startups has the technology and the agility, so there could be a good win-win situation for both. My last question to you, Pierre, is what's your top suggestion to Mittelstand owners, Mittelstand managers to apply right away?
I think they need, and I think they need to get educated about technology, and one of the whole reason why we decided to start 9X with my co-founder is right now there's still, and it's true everywhere, even in the startup world, there's a lot of smart business people who have like 10 to 20 years ago, this guy would have started building very complex Excel sheet models, at a moment where Excel were only for specific people, and then they realized it's for everybody. And right now, it's exactly the same with web technology. There's a part of the technology which has been made accessible for everybody. You don't need to be a developer to be able to use an API. If provided that you understand what are the basic theoretical logic around it, anybody who has a systematic way of thinking can understand what an API is, and what at least this, like the form of this technology can enable for his industry or for his business. And I think it's very important that people get educated on what are the capabilities that the current state of technology is offering, because a lot of time you don't do things because you think I need to be a developer, or I need developers, or it's too expensive. But there's some easy win that you can have, and that's why I would just recommend people to get educated, try to look a bit around, understand what web technologies are, what's an API, what's an automation, and start using stuff. Maybe just go get an account on Zapier or Integromat and just start doing like little things. Like so, basically, just go and try to build something very simple. Like whenever you receive, let's say whenever you receive an email where with the word invoice in it, just take the PDF and save it into a folder. Like
exactly.
Or something that makes your life easier. Whenever your wife sends you an email on your business email, just make sure you mark the email as private. Like there are solutions you cannot directly do in Gmail or in your email provider system, but just trying to think what makes your life
easier.
And in generally get educated of what the internet is and what web technologies are, what APIs are, because it's just, it's for me, it's like, it's like driving a car. Like you don't need to know exactly how every single piece of your car is working, but it's still, it's still good to know that, if you know how to use the gear and how to use, like if you have a basic knowledge, you are a better driver. You don't need to be a mechanic, because we don't ask you to be a Formula One driver. But if you have a good understanding of how your car is working, then you are able to be a better driver and to make more use of it. And also, I like this metaphor because when the car was invented, there was a moment where only a few people would drive cars. And it was only the people who knew how a car was to be driven and worked. And I think right now we're kind of in a similar situation with technology. Only developers use it because everybody thinks you need to be a developer to use technology.
But I really like the analogy with the cars, so I will also use it. Before we close, how people can find you?
They can find me. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me just looking for 9x. So 9x.agency is our website, and bootcamp.9x.agency. It's the educational program that we offer for people who want to get into automation and coding. So that's how people can find us.
Thank you, Pierre. It was so nice and so informative. Thank you for the examples and sharing your experience. And yeah, thank you for being here.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Chan.
Ciao.
Ciao.
Release one episode every Tuesday at 7:45 a.m. and also other videos for digital transformation. If you like the content, please subscribe, and you can reach me out anytime by my email. Here it is. And thank you for visiting my channel.